I am so excited to have with me as my guest today. For the first time ever, by the way, two guests at once. But there's a reason why we're going to have both of them together. Coach Rick Macy and Dr. Niva. First of all, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time.
It's good to be here.
Thank you so much, Sean, for having us.
The first thing we're going to talk about a book. We're going to talk about some of the incredible athletes and some of the incredible accolades that you guys have earned throughout your careers. But for my listeners, could you just share with us each a little bit about your families and what growing up was like for you?
I grew up in Augusta, Georgia. My parents were both immigrants from India. So the way I was raised was very strict, extremely disciplined on what I ate, what I said, what I did, and very hardworking. There was no end to the amount of work that was put into everything that I did. I grew up with my twin sister and my parents. And what was interesting about how I was raised was my parents circulated around me and my twin sister. They did everything for us. They never picked us up late from school, which is what unfortunately I do now because I'm a doctor and I'm like sitting there like I have a patient call and I'm always a few minutes behind schedule, but they never picked us up late. They did everything. They drove miles and miles for each tournament. My dad and my dad would prep me before I played. They would do stretching and running, and my mom was like feeding balls. So everything was circulated around the kids. That was their extracurricular. They didn't really have much other than that. And then they would drive to Atlanta, Georgia, just to get fresh carrots and make carrot juice. It was insane. It was just everything was about nutrition and hard work and health and perfection and spirituality. So everything was circulated around us and our performance. So my twin sister and I were always expected to perform at the highest level. And then when we heard about Rick, and at one time I got this letter from him and his academy in the mail. There was no internet. They had no problem with driving. My mom would drive overnight because it would go from Georgia all the way to Fort Lauderdale in Florida. And he's in Boca right now, but in South Florida, so we'd drive. And so there's just this whole intensity component that I was raised in. And this family structure is very nuclear, very hardworking. So there was nothing that could beat that. My mom, all she did was just spend all her free time with me and my twin sister, and my dad did the same thing.
I have a story like no other. I grew up in a small town, Greenville, Ohio, 30 miles southwest of Dayton, Ohio. I have an older sister. My dad passed away when I was 10 years old. I picked up a tennis racket at age 12. We lived a half mile from a park. I went down there and hit balls against the wall. Listen to this. This is crazy stuff. And so at age 12, I picked up a racket. I taught myself how to play tennis. By 18, I was the #1 ranked player in the Ohio Valley with no lessons in the Hall of Fame for tennis and basketball. I played a lot of different sports. I got into coaching at 22 years old. I like helping others more than myself. I found my niche. And still to this day, at age 69, I still teach 50 hours a week, 7 days. And I have just as much passion as I did when I started way back in Greenville, Ohio. I had to do it on my own. And a lot of those gold nuggets are still the cornerstone of how I teach and how I can relate to people and so on and so forth. So I want everybody who hears this, always remember, it's not where you start, it's where you finish.
And Coach, you truly self-taught.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, and I teach more lessons than anybody in the United States as we sit here today. And never had a lesson, but your thirst for knowledge increases because if you have that mindset that you want to get better or you're going to get worse, and I learn every day. I learned from the 6 hours I was on the court this morning from the students, and I'm always getting better. And so it's worked out, but I love Greenville. I haven't been back there in a long time. Small town, but I still have those Midwest values, and I had the best childhood of anybody.
For both of you, interpret it how you like, but tell me about your favorite childhood sports-related memory.
I was fortunate my senior year to hit in the last 10 seconds of 3 games, the game-winning shot. So I always wanted the ball at the end, but pressure was my best friend. So I think hitting a jumper against the West Carlton Pirates with no time on the clock to win the game. I guess no one's ever asked me that question, but I guess it would be that. I love basketball.
That's awesome, Coach. Thank you. Dr. Niva?
Yeah, I remember wins and things like that. But the one thing I always remember is that I never forget playing a national tournament, and I was playing on clay court, and I'll never forget, I slid trying to run for a ball, and I had I skid and hurt my knee in the middle of the point, and my knee is dripping in blood. It's gushing, and I still win that point. And then I think I had 2 more points to win the match, and I didn't even look at my knee. I love that best because I'm so passionate about mental strength. I was really proud of myself. I won the next point and the next point, and that's it. I won the match. She thought, my opponent thought I was done because had this like bloody knee, and I was like gonna cry, but I didn't. I didn't even show one emotion. I actually smiled. My mom was freaking out, and I love that part because that's really what this book that Rick and I have written about, Billion Dollar Mind. That's really the premise, is not to let the environment or anything touch us. We should have a very bulletproof billion-dollar mind. And so I love that memory. I always remember it.
That could have been a snapshot into the future. Now she's drawing blood from others, so instead of from her own knee. So maybe there was a snapshot into the future there. I don't know.
It was like
Yeah, I like that question. No one's ever asked me that, and I've done over 500 podcasts.
Well, this question, I'm going to start with Coach Rick first, and you'll understand why. But Coach Rick, which coach encouraged and inspired you most when you were younger? You are literally a nationally, internationally renowned coach. We'll go through the list of some of your incredible pupils, including Dr. Niva sitting right next to you. But who was that coach early on that really made an impact on you?
First off, it'd probably be my mom, because even though she wasn't a coach, she was a coach in a very different way. And no, if there would be one person, it'd probably be Dr. James Lair, pioneer in sports psychology. Everything he's done now has been regurgitated, twisted, turned, marketed differently. But in 1980 at Greenleaf Resort, I did a lot of stuff with the corporate structure with Jim, even though we did stuff also with tennis players. And we were cut from the same cloth. Even though I didn't have a degree in sports psychology, I did in the game of life growing up the way I grew up. And so I was intrigued by everything. So Jim Lair had the biggest impact on me. And that's why I knew the mental part of the game was the most important. And I never really was around anybody else that had that big influence on me until later on in my career. And then maybe 15 years ago, my partner, Dr. Brian Gordon, who has his PhD in biomechanics, he did his thesis on this stuff. He writes a paper, I look at it, I said, that's the most amazing paper I've ever read, but I don't understand any of it. And we were on the cutting edge of biomechanics. So those two people, by far the leaders in the clubhouse, and you pick and choose, but probably the number one, if I had to go number one, it would be every student that I teach every day. I learn more from my students than they learn from me, because that has made me not only a better coach, but a better person and even a better father.
All right, let me ask a natural follow-up, and this will segue into Dr. Niva's thoughts. What's something that you learned from the young lady right next to you? You talk about learning from your student athletes. What did you learn from her?
Crafty, clever, surgical. She won with the mental part of the game. Okay, even though she had quick feet and some good, quick, flat ground strokes, she wasn't going to blow you away, but she was out there with a razor blade. And if you have a razor blade and you just keep nicking someone, you can still get them to bleed to death and win the match. So she was very surgical the way she played. She won with her mind. And you got to understand, she was number one in the South as a junior tennis player. And that's a lot. But I think she made the right decision going to Harvard and becoming one of the best doctors in the world.
And Dr. Niva, first, what did you learn from your coach? What's one of your biggest lessons that you learned from him? And then secondly, assuming even if he is the answer, give me a secondary coach who really maybe even earlier than Coach Rick, who really encouraged and inspired you at an early age.
Absolutely. So I think with Rick, I learned so much. It's the first time in my life I had met someone who worked harder than students. I was blown away and so motivated by that. And also someone who just, you get this vibe that he's not, he had pictures of Serena and Venus, and he had pictures of the letters they wrote to him. And I remember seeing that when I was a student. And I knew that he wasn't going to take, there weren't any excuses, and he wasn't going to take anything but excellence. And I love that mental attitude and that vibe, because that was going to vibe with me. Either you're number one in your field or you do something else number one. So I really learned it. And also just really connected with that. And that's why I was so impressed and just so taken away by a coach like Rick. I was like, finally, somebody who thinks in such a big mind. And I love it. You're not thinking, oh, okay. Like a lot of coaches will make excuses. They do. They're like, oh, it's okay. You lost. Are you having fun? It's no, that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to win. And Rick was the first one who had that same mindset of let's win, be good at it, be excellent at it, and be number one at it, or you change your career. And I love that that's what really vibed. So I learned a lot about that and his hard work ethic. He was always working harder. So there was always that motivation to do more and to be better, stronger in every single way. And then, of course, as a child, before I met Rick, it was my mom. She worked hard. In the night, she would watch these tennis videos and she'd try to learn the technique. She's really particular about technique. And so she would get on the court and try to teach me. And I liked it because she worked so hard. She would be she's a neurologist as well. So she would work all day, cook fresh food, and then teach me tennis. I don't know how she did it. She was like a machine. And then she'd teach me and correct me. And I'd be like, gosh, I just hit a winner. Why are you still correcting me? And what was interesting about that was that she would say, look, Niva, don't be like an earthworm. If I say something, you're like moving around. That earthworm is so susceptible to the environment. Be strong, have a strong mind. If I correct you, be strong and say, okay, I'm happy. I want to learn. I want to get better. So I never forget. I still remember those chords in that moment when she taught me that. And I was taken away. I said, okay, I'm going to make my mind strong. So she did.
Isn't it interesting? Both roads lead back to mom.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. When you said that,
it's very common.
Again, there's no doubt that you both are so successful in your areas of chosen work. Share with me, though, something that you wrestled or struggled with in middle school or high school. I think it's important for my young audience to understand that it's okay to face challenges, to not be perfect, to make mistakes. So looking at you two with the Harvard and the people you've coached, when you were a young person, what's something what was a big challenge for you personally?
I can go for that one, Sean, because I can tell you what I remember the challenge that I had, not because of me, but because of my twin. So I was 100% alone in my work ethic, alone in my thoughts. Nobody thought like me. I wanted to improve the world. I wanted to change the world. I wanted to make an impact in this world. During lunchtime, I was studying. And I would always get the highest grade. So I wasn't having friends. In the evening, I was playing tennis. On the weekends, again, I was playing tennis or traveling. I was number one. And I had that attitude of hard work ethic and dedication. And nobody could understand me. And I think that if you're a young kid who has that sort of commitment, dedication, have a big mind, you want to change the world, you're going to be alone. You're not going to be the crowd. People were going to movies and I was like, I'm going to waste my time to go out for restaurants. I never did that. And I would tell all these young kids that it's okay to be alone. And now I have YouTube, so I vibe at a different frequency. I have Rick, who's like very similar to me. It's okay to be alone and to celebrate your excellence rather than around people who do not match your goals and trying to change your excellence to somebody else. And it was hard because my sister liked me. She liked to have friends and she still goes out every day. She's different. But because of me, I'd pull her in to our physics room and both of us would be studying during lunch. And she and I both went to Harvard as a result. But she had a harder time because she was like, oh, I wish I could be having more of a social life. And why is my sister doing this to me? So I had to tell her. So at that one point, different people, but it's hard because you don't want to other kids don't understand you, and it's okay. It's totally okay to be that and to be yourself, because it's not where you start, Rick says, it's where you finish. And that's really where we want to be. Where do we end up from here? What's our long-term goals? And at the end of the day, always celebrated myself and my hard work. But I don't know how you're
No, listen, first off, I had the best childhood ever. small town, everybody knows everybody. And I was just so dedicated and just loved sports. I played every sport. But I had a lot of friends, and I was the guy that always put the baseball games together and the basketball and the football. I was always like leader. I'd be calling people at 7 a.m, waking them up, and I was always first. And I always had those qualities. But when maybe there was a party, okay, for that weekend or Friday night, I would always go to bed early and I wouldn't go to the party because I had to stay plugged in. I was so dedicated to becoming the best I could at tennis. And that's why I expedited the learning curve and got really good really quick. I was always, the most important thing was in front of me. And if I was in a tournament, I wouldn't go with 50 other people to the party growing up. And so I think when you have passion for something and you love something, it's easier to prioritize things. So that's another great question, because I was never really asked that. And now that I'm reflecting a little bit, people, all my friends got it. And looking back, they have seen my journey, okay, and what I've done. And they know that's the same exact Rick Macy that we knew at 15, 16, 17, 18 years old. Exactly the same. All those qualities they saw back then, being dedicated, being first, being the best you can be, always treating everybody better than yourself. All those things have served me well in the future to pass that on to other generations.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Rick, you've coached some amazing players that we see some of them on your wall behind you, including Serena and Venus and Andy Roddick and many others. What was it about coaching that inspired you to pursue that as a career?
First off, great question. I just knew that for myself personally, I got to be pretty good. I played some qualifying and pro tournaments. That's not bad for not having any lessons, but to be great, it's all the money's at the top. So I got into coaching early on. And I'll never forget this. At 22 years old, there was a guy in Troy, Ohio, my first job. And the first week I was there, he was very good friends with Don Budge, Ellsworth Fines, Tony Traver, names that people probably don't remember. And this guy came up with me, Tom Friedel. He came up to me and he said, I don't know exactly where this is going to end up, but you're going to be one of the greatest teachers of all time. And I'm going, oh, that's 22 years old. I think he just saw the energy on the court, the passion, how people radiated maybe towards me, and how I could get people to do things. And you learn the knowledge as you go along, like all of us do. And so when I saw how rewarding that it wasn't going to be for myself. And then I started seeing people just play better and do better, whether it be adults or women or men, and then kids winning sectionals and districts and state. And I'm seeing that, how rewarding that was, and how I was getting people to do things maybe even quicker and better than they ever thought. Okay. It just feeds itself. The beast just keeps feeding itself. And now I look back and there's so many people that have won national titles, over 300 and some. I don't remember all of them. So no, I just felt I had that gift to communicate, educate, stimulate, motivate. And I just saw the impact. And that's the best feeling in the world, when you can help others. That's what we're here for, to serve. Not yourself. You're going to do that in other ways. And to me, that's why I still do it to this day. And like I said, I love it just as much today as the first time I started teaching at age 22.
That's outstanding. And what's something you try to instill like in your young athletes? If I were to poll all the athletes that you've coached over the years, what's that one message? If you could only get them to understand one thing that you could impart on them, what would it be, Coach?
This is the easiest question, and I've been asked that a lot. It's to get them to be the best competitor they can be. anybody, anytime, anywhere, never make excuses, and just run, maybe run, sweat, and shut up. And maybe for some kids, not in that order, okay? No, it's because how many times you lose to someone and you had a better forehand, backhand, and serve. You're going, how did I lose to that guy? And so I teach them how to compete. And that should be the message of every coach, any sport. Get them to be the best competitor they can be. And that's how I knew Roddick would make it in the pros. I didn't know he'd win the US Open at 20 or whatever he did. His thirst for competition was brutal. The guy was such an overachiever. You got people forget he beat Rafa, Nadal, he beat Federer, Djokovic, Murray. Maybe he was limited in some areas. Just an unbelievable competitor. That was wired in from his two older brothers, probably beating him up all the time in the house. But no, that's the number one thing of any coach. But it's not who has the best forehand, backhand serve, even though you go into combat, you need the weapons. It's more that there's nothing even close to that, because if you're an unbelievable competitor, okay, and you're all about the competition and you just love the battle, you become bulletproof and you handle pressure better. That's what people don't understand at every level, junior, college, pro, or even at the highest. Who's going to blink? When do you blink? So at the end of the day, that would be my message. And it still is to this day. And that's what I do to get the most out of everybody. And if you're doing the best you can as a competitor, good things are on the horizon.
So for you, Dr. Niva, was that your big takeaway from coach? And then two, what was a sort of specific way do you feel like that he helped you to develop that competitive spirit and maybe take it up to a different level? Because it's very clear that you were very competitive. You had a pursuit and thirst for excellence. But what was something coach taught you to take that to another level for yourself that you applied to your life?
Absolutely. I think, of course, competition was part of Rick and Academy, and things I took from him were a lot, like positivity, the positive energy, the hard work ethic, the discipline, incredible discipline. And you could just see that. So of course he worked harder than every student. But I think in terms of the competition and the competitive spirit, just a small thing, like I'll never forget when he was teaching all the students how to go to the net. He said, I bet all these girls are scared. I bet all of you are scared to go to the net. I bet. And I'm sure you are. And you never go to the net. And if you do, you're going to win. You're going to be number one. And I'll never forget that concept of fear. And so that was really important to overcome fear. I said, wow, is it just girls? Why is that girls are afraid? And I was really grappling with that. I was like, gosh, I feel like I wish I could conquer. So I remember playing the next match in a tournament, and those words were ringing in my head. And I said, am I afraid? So I remember I said, I'm not. And I will show him that I'm not. In my mind, I will show myself that I'm not afraid. So I went to the net, finished almost all my matches in half the time. Because the levels that I was playing, a lot of girls would love and play. They were just like, pusher. It's just a different type of tennis. So I started going into the net and hitting swinging volleys. So that aspect of overcoming fear was so important. And I think I used that for the rest of my life, and very important.
Very cool. Coach, I believe all your children are daughters, right? They're all girls?
Yes.
So I'm curious, Coach,
did they play tennis?
No, not actually. It's irrelevant to me whether they played tennis, but my question for you is, how did your coaching change when you became a father? And then how did raising 3 girls impact the way you coached?
First off, amazing question. It didn't really, as far as the way I would do things, but as I went down the yellow brick road and dealt with more children, okay, especially girls, okay, it did make me like reflect and take a deep breath and understand, like I have three daughters, there's 3 different personalities, all different problems, all different situations. So it instead of me reacting, I would process it maybe more as a coach, because I'm not at their house and I don't know what's going on and who knows what is affecting this and this. So I think through all our life experiences, all our yesterdays affect our tomorrows. And so, yeah, it's definitely benefited a lot. Okay. And how to deal with all boys and girls, but mainly girls, because I've dealt with it as a father. Because people don't understand, from age 13, I raised all three of them by myself, besides working 70 hours a week and running my own business. So I should be in the Hall of Fame just putting up with those three girls. No, but seriously, it's helped a lot. It's made me probably even more well-rounded and to understand things even more, because all three of them were very athletic. You know what I'm saying? So that helps also, because I saw the athleticism. Then it's what you do with that. But no, I love this question. No one's ever asked me that, but it's helped tremendously. And I might not even know how much it helped me, because it just became a part of me, like my three kids.
Yeah. Thank you for that thoughtful answer. Dr. Niva, I'm curious from your perspective, because I heard you mention coach's work ethic. You'd never met a coach that worked so hard. But I think it's very clear just in the short time of just talking to coach and hearing how you feel about him and just seeing your body language too. But there's a connection, right? Tell me about, how did coach just connect with you? Because it just seems like he's the kind of person. I always believe that, as a coach myself, that young people aren't going to listen to me unless they really feel that I care about them, not as a collective, but as an individual. And it just seems like that's his personality. So Niva, how did he connect with you on a deeper level that made you realize that you weren't just another client, that you weren't just another kid? And to be very candid, yes, you had a great amateur career, but you're not one of his professional athletes who won a finalist at some major or something like that. Yet here you two are still connected after all these years. So what was that connection? And then how has it sustained decades since you guys were on the court together?
That's a brilliant question, Sean. I love these questions. So the connection was that he was obviously unique and different and hardworking, and that I really appreciated it. I was always in touch with Rick. It encouraged me as a child. I never really took a lot of private lessons with him, but I just always marveled at how he taught and what he did and what he knew. So it so happened that over the years, I got closer and closer to him. He was in Boca, and now I eventually moved to Orlando, and I would always reach out to him. I had my own kids. They didn't play tennis, but initially they started off at the academy. Now they do their own things. I'd always watch him, and I was connected in some way that way. But then I came back and I said, he's really impacted my life. The reason why I am what I am, I'm not wasting my time trying for tennis and professional tennis. I quickly changed to medicine because of his guidance. And so I came back one day saying there's a Women in Power award. And I was like, oh, I wanted to recognize Rick. I was like, oh, I just felt like that was important for me. It was one of the things in my life that I really thought was important. So I came back, did a photo shoot, and took a picture to appreciate what he did for my life. And in that moment, I said just a few things. I said, hey, I think about writing a book on mental strength, and I love these quotes, and maybe we should do something together. I never in my wildest dreams thought he would message me. This is what he's so real. He's hardworking and consistent. So he sends me a text message in the middle of work, how draining your work is, your patients are suffering. And I get this message from Rick I respect and appreciate so much. And he's like, how's the book going along? What? Partner, like a word and a sentence a day or something. And here it is, the first time in my life I've asked people to do research projects, and nobody really wants to do that hard work. I've asked people to collaborate on other things in the medical field or come up with devices. People are really interested in investing their time on getting to the next level. Rick's here initiating this conversation, initiating this. He motivated me to write it. Now I had to write it for him, and I'll do anything for him because I respected him so much. And so I was like, okay, good. So I was like, so I finished the book and gave him a draft. He was so positive. So always generating positivity, always generating excellence. I was so grateful for that. You could tell that sort of sincerity, the authenticity, the reality. And I could tell he's connected. And the other thing Rick does that is real is just the connection, the communication. Every day I would get a text message about something he had published or a news article with him. And it's just, you could tell there was so much of a connection in that process. And I think he connects with almost all his students and families in the academy like that. But obviously now we had the book. So I was like, oh yeah, I was like, we had reasons to connect in that way. And that was so real, but just so positive.
And coach, look, if Dr. Niva came to you and said, hey, I'm writing a book about knitting. Do you want to co-author a book on knitting with me? Obviously, you would not have said yes to that. So this topic,
knitting, I don't know. I've sewn a lot of people's games together. Hey, listen, if there's a market out there, I'd listen to it. But yeah, when it was about like mental strength, that's in my wheelhouse. I'm more of a life coach than a tennis coach because Niv knows. And yeah, no, it was just like one of the most fun things to have such a dynamic duo, two different pedigrees, really near the top of their profession, team up and share the wisdom from a medical point of view, and then someone in the trenches point of view. So it's a very, probably been other people do, two people do a book, but we pack a powerful 1-2 punch for sure.
So let's talk about Billion Dollar Mind, the book. What's one of your favorite takeaways when you think about my audience of young athletes who have aspirations in and outside of sports and their parents and families who are there to support them? What's one of the big takeaways that you feel like that a reader is going to get from checking out your book? I'll start with Dr. Niva first.
Yeah, I can go on for hours on that topic.
Yeah.
It's too many. But one of the top ones that I think of right away is that you are your own best friend and your mental thoughts are your own best friends. So we've got to remind ourselves that what we think every day, like Rick's always saying, like what we eat is important, but what we think is even more important. How we generate these thoughts about ourselves is crucial to our performance. So when we are thinking positive things, saying positive things to ourselves, encouraging ourselves, that's going to improve our performance exponentially, because now we're going to believe in ourselves and we are the most important. There's so many endless stories where athletes decide to say positive affirmations and then they do it during the performance and they win the gold medal, or someone is saying positive affirmations and they win the match. They're saying things to themselves that are positive. When something doesn't go well, they don't react to it negatively. They don't beat themselves up. That's a huge problem people have. They are not their own best friend. And when they say positive things, these positive thoughts are like our own best friend. It's so important to remember that. And that allows us to act positively, to keep going, generate endless amounts of positive energy so that we can perform at our maximal level. I haven't seen anybody succeed with negative thoughts at all. So it's just really important that we talk to ourselves positively. And that's just a small snippet of the book, but that's
Dr. Niva, I read some of the reviews, and one of the things I love was just the use of the word practical, that you do a great job of taking very technical sort of information and making it practical. So if I had a young athlete who struggled with negative self-talk, what's an exercise or recommendation you would have to help them to break that pattern and develop a sort of a new way?
Absolutely. So here are a couple of things. So in the morning and in the evening, this is what I did. I would say positive affirmations. I had a list of them. You can put them, you can write them in a journal, you can put them on your water bottle, you can put them in your bag, and it suddenly triggers a positive emotion and then a positive action. So those are things you can do. Keep positive things all over. Some people keep positive affirmations on their iPhone. We're always looking at our phone and our screen. Might as well just keep them there, so you're always reminding yourself. That's one thing. And then another thing you can do is think of 10 amazing things, or even more, and that's however many you want, amazing things about yourself. There should fill up yourself with self-love. A lot of the best athletes really have confidence and they love themselves and they appreciate themselves. Even if they lose, they still think that they did their best and they're going to win next time. And they'll get better. So there's just the way we approach ourselves, and the dialogue we have with ourselves is so important. So doing that with positive affirmations or writing things about ourselves that we love, and always like giving ourselves credit in the morning. Some people smile and they fill the day with positivity. So these are some things you can do to improve.
Love that. How about you, Coach?
Now, let me chime in on that, because I deal with this all the time. The first thing I would do, you got to understand the perspective of how you're looking at it. Frustration and negativity and the self-talk is natural. Okay, that's a natural thing. Okay, how you deal with it. Now we're getting into mental strength. Okay. Can you take a negative and turn it into a positive? What I do with a lot of the kids, if you want to be the best you can be, or you want to be great or whatever, you watch how someone like Nadal handles a mistake when he misses, or Federer, or Djokovic. No one's perfect. Okay. But watch how they handle it. It's like it never even happened. Watch what they say. You know what I'm saying? And there you got the movie right there in front of you. The highest, the best. That's the movie. They don't have to listen to me or you. They don't have to read a book. Look at greatness. And look how they handle failure. Look how they handle, they're not going to, and the ones that maybe don't as much, even at the pro level, they don't have a lot of bucket of grand slams. It's a different level of how you train your mind. I go right to greatness. I don't mess around. I go bang, there you go. And then you look at Iga. Before we got on with you, I was watching her. She's running back and forth after the first set, like a Rafa, jumping up and down like a bunny rabbit. She copied Nadal. She trained herself to have those mannerisms. Now, I know it's a package. You got to have the thoroughbred. I get all that stuff. But the negative self-talk, then I go another way. I go, would you rather have someone say something positive to you or negative? And everybody obviously says positive. So why do you want to beat yourself up? Why do you want to be negative? You wouldn't want to be around that type of person if they were always critical, whatever. And to take it even further, this is why people, it blows me away. They play singles very different in doubles. In doubles, you make a mistake and you got a therapist on the court and you go up and you hug the person, they give them a high five, a kiss, whatever, and that emotion's gone. There's no negativity. You don't see the negativity in doubles. Even at the pro level, you watch it because you go up and it's gone, that emotion. Once again, you're letting something control you instead of you controlling the situation. And greatness can control. It's all perspective. Then it becomes a choice of how you're going to deal with it, positive or negative. And positivity is a leader in the clubhouse.
That's great stuff.
Yeah.
Coach, I wanted to ask you too. Dr. Niva shared one of her favorite takeaways. What about you? What's one of your favorite parts of the book, $1 Billion Mind?
I think the impact and the reviews, when people say it changed their life, that's covering a lot of real estate right there. When I hear that, okay, that's the book was good, or that's a common theme from a lot of people. Life, you're changing someone's life, okay? And that covers a lot. And that means they're going to change other people's lives. This is branching out in many directions. That's been the most fulfilling thing for me, to hear comments like that. So regarding what I put into the book, there's about 40 hours of private lessons from Rick Macy, just how I look at the world through a different lens. As I tell everybody, what you may see is different than Rick may see. And so that people, they love the quote, they love the book, but more importantly, they can keep going back and looking at it. So that's what I like about it. It's an ongoing book that everybody needs a little pick me up, a little giddy up, and you can go back to the book, and just one word or a couple of sentences can get you on track and fire you up.
Dr. Niva, since you wrote most of the words, what's one of your favorite Macyisms that's in the book? Like, just because, again, Coach he said, like, in the trenches. What's one of those stories that you just love that he shared with you that's a part of the book?
I love the quote, think big and be big. I live that. I have to, because it's, if you do that, that all those little things in life are too small. I was like, okay, think bigger. I can think bigger. This little thing that's a nuisance, someone says something, someone does something that's frustrating, or someone is rude or negative. Those don't mean anything. I'm always reframing. I got to think bigger. I got to be bigger. I got to do something bigger. And I think that quote hits home so well, because I think I use it. I'm like, okay, how can I make the world a better place? How can I think bigger in this situation? And rather than really get caught up with other people's issues or negativity or the situation that may not have gone perfectly, how can I make bigger impact in the world. So that reframes everything and makes the little things stay little.
And coach, what was that aha thing when you read the manuscript of the book and you were like, wow, I can't believe she connected that dot, or I can't believe she brought this, her doctor perspective and her years of learning at Harvard and the Mayo Clinic, I'm sorry. What was that thing like for you where you're like, wow, that was outstanding, the perspective and insight that she brought?
Oh, just like there's so many common threads and we're cut from the same cloth, even though we do totally two different things. When you're talking like mental strength, and then to have that confirmation, affirmation from the medical point of view, and just how all the wires work and how you put it in and deliver it out, it's just powerful. It's the best feeling in the world because I was always like that. But then to understand what really worked internally, it was awesome.
So validation for you then, huh, coach?
No
To
question
have,
about it.
yeah, got it. I'm curious, coach, I can't imagine that. I'm sure this comes up from your students or frankly their parents' perspective, but comparison has got to be a real big challenge for you when you have students or their parents trying to draw comparisons. And again, in the world of tennis, you've coached some of the most elite Hall of Fame forever athletes ever. And I even notice you always talk about you want your athletes to be their best, not the best, but their best. Those distinctions that I've heard you color in your conversation. How do you deal with that comparison part?
Listen, I get that more than anybody in the world.
I would imagine.
You have no idea, especially when people see that 10-year-old video of Serena. You got to understand, I've had 40,000 people say my kid's better than Serena, and they'll show me their video at 10, and they're looking at something that through their eyes, and I'm looking at something on the inside of I saw something obviously with her and Venus and many others. So I don't really compare. Okay. I use it for myself because I know what greatness is. I put it in the oven, I baked it, I put the icing on it, I put the sprinkles on it, and I've seen it go every which direction, even the other way. So I've seen these movies so many different ways, and there's no specific way to the mountaintop. There's a lot of common threads. I do compare to myself because I know what quick is and fast and mentally
Yeah.
strong and a world-class stroke is and what's a liability or going to be a speed bump or the parent. I have a very good feel of the landscape when I evaluate talent, but I never compare you won't be as good as that or whatever, because I knew early on there was no way Serena would be better than Venus. That's what I always thought. Okay. Because I didn't see it because her brain could not reason. She wasn't as mature. And I tell her body, do not judge a book by the cover. The cover could be amazing, the book bad. Cover amazing, the book bad. You got to be careful doing that stuff. So I never really make comparisons because I know, especially what I do, it's junior development. It's not junior final destination. It's not where you start. It's where you finish. I can name 50 people right now are number one in the 12 or 14 or 16 or 18 or number one in the world, and you never heard of them. Okay. I could get into that whole song and dance, but unfortunately, parents want instant gratification. They don't really understand this is such a journey. You get bigger, stronger, faster. You're going to make shots. You'll be on balance. People win because they're more mature. They had a better opportunity. So it's a little tricky, but I know how to evaluate talent and I can project. And that's what I always do. But I don't ever compare this one had dad and this one had dad or whatever. Because listen, if you have unbelievable mental strength, that means you're going to be able to handle pressure, and you can get that later on in life. And if you have a few weapons on top of that, okay, that's enough to get you to the mountaintop.
Love that. Last two questions. I'd both you guys to answer these two. I'm going to start with Dr. Niva. You're a parent. I heard you say that. What's one message you have for the youth sports parents out there today?
My biggest message is that find something that your child loves to do. Do not force them into something you love to do, because
Mhm.
your child will have different passions. It may be a different sport, or it may be the same sport, but it's always important to really investigate what their passion is. And it's very, even though I say this, but it's sometimes people say, how do you find that? And you'll find out what a kid does in their free time without you telling them to do it.
Mhm.
They'll do something. You just give them, you let them be them, and you force them to do something. Go for your lesson. Let's get there on time. You just start doing that. You know that there's probably something they're having. And we're not talking about spending endless hours on video games. We're talking about what is it that they're creating? What is it that they enjoy studying? And it may
Mhm.
be not the sport that you put them in. So just once you
Mhm.
find their passion and also their giftedness, every kid has something unique that they're good in.
Mhm.
Going to Harvard, I saw some interesting people. Some people did the crazy. One guy was really good in whistling. And I think he was like
Mhm.
number 1 in his community, in the region in whistling. He was really good, and he had landed himself at Harvard. Some people are really good in math, and some people, it's just being good in what you love and what you enjoy, and what you can excel in. And it doesn't have to be the same robotic, stereotypical thing that
Mhm.
you did. I know parents love football and they want their kids to play football, but maybe the kid doesn't like it. So you're not going
Mhm.
to get the success you want if the kid doesn't like it. So very
Mhm.
important for parents to be attuned to what their kids are good at. They may if you have a significant other or whatever, their dad, they might have the talents of their dad or their mom, and you never know what they have to offer. So
Mhm.
be very open-minded with kids and developing them, because they'll have a talent. Bottom line is they're going to gravitate to what they love anyways. You force
Mhm.
them into something, they're going to do what they want anyways. You might as well just start young.
And coach, what would be your message to youth sports parents?
Yeah, no, listen, I think the number one thing would be for the parents, and this is hard because they're
Mhm.
all in, they're working during the week, and then the weekend it's a
Mhm.
Super Bowl.
Mhm.
It's they're
Mhm.
that weekend, whether they're playing soccer or flag football or a tennis game or whatever, they're kids first, okay? And the athlete second. And you got to keep that perspective, because they go from 8 to 9 to 10 to 11 to 12 to 13 to 14. They get a driver's license, a boyfriend, a girlfriend. They're going to go to college. And the parents got to understand that. They're so in the moment. They got to understand their kids first. And in my situation, tennis players second. And they lose that perspective. And when you have that balance, okay, you're going to understand a lot more. But also, the parent's job is to support, motivate, instill belief. Okay. And if the kid doesn't want to do it, you can't make them do it. You can guide them and push them a little bit, but they get so wrapped up into the wrong thing. They're the ones playing instead of the kid. And that's
Mhm.
why I love, like Richard Williams, the life lessons that he taught Venus and Serena every day. You can see that in a movie, but every single day off the court, they give me a hug. Rick, thank you very much. Sometimes Serena, the fist pump was a little harder than I wanted. She was a little chippy back in the day. And they brought their books to the court every day. And if it rained, go to Rick's office and study. That's what people
Mhm.
don't understand. They don't understand. And that's why I like the guy so much. Is a world-class dad. I should be in the Hall of Fame putting up with that guy too, besides raising my 3 daughters. But no, that would be my message to any parents. Their kids first. And you got to always say, what was I like at 10? What was I like at 11? And I know they want what's best for their kids. And you do have to push and motivate, and you can't let them make all the decisions. But at the end of the day, let them own it, but always remember their kids first.
And last question for each of you, whoever wants to step up first. What would be that message that you would have for the young athletes who look up to you? For the kids listening, what would you want them to know?
I would say in our book, we talk about positive associations. And I think finding the right coach can make the world of difference. You've got to find the right person. And if you keep connecting with someone who's either negative or doesn't vibe or doesn't share your vision, then
Mhm.
it's not the right person. And I think sometimes in the past, we were isolated. I know in Augusta, Georgia, where I grew up, we were so isolated. There were not many coaches, and we'd have to drive forever to find someone. I was lucky to find Rick, and that's life changing. But find the expert in your field, connect with that person. If they vibe with you, that's going to be super important. And now we have everything virtual. We can connect online, or we can do things and in a different world, a different way, and find the best coaches online. We can even watch their Instagram or their YouTube and know, oh yeah, I like the way he teaches, or I like, and don't be scared to go ahead and connect with that coach. And especially if you love tennis, I would find a coach like Rick. I would go to him because the best in the world, knows the technique. He's going to make you better than you can imagine. And if you're not going to turn pro, at least you can go to a great college. That is one of the most important decisions. If people don't realize that, they're still stuck with being average or the local. They'll be taught by their family member who doesn't even know how to play tennis. You're like, why is the aunt teaching them? Like, why are they having their neighbor teach them? It's just people don't realize it. But then if you're beyond that, then the local coaches may not be good enough if you're really excelling. So find the best in your field and connect with them.
And Coach, what would be your message to the young athletes listening?
Yeah, no, I think they got to understand that all greatness comes from them. But at the end of the day, a winner finds a way. We can all make excuses. You can go out and play with Wally. Wally's undefeated. The ball always comes back. But you want to be in an environment where it's positive, uplifting, motivating, depending on your skill level. But if you develop the mindset, I want everybody to understand, all kids, if you watch people who are successful, other kids, watch their work ethic, watch how they work. That alone should motivate you to do more. Then it's up to you and your parents, obviously, to be in the right environment that you can have better competition, you're getting better instruction, and even to reach out, like Niv said, whether it be Zoom or whatever, just because you live somewhere else, a lot of people can help you because you get comfortable or you like someone because they're your friend or whatever. But if you want to be the best you can be, you should explore every option. But I want everybody to understand the best way to get better, okay, is always look in the mirror.
I really enjoyed talking to both of you guys. Thank you so much for all your pearls of wisdom, all your great stories, and look forward to staying in touch with you both.
Yeah, no, thank you. Enjoyed it. And we'll definitely do it again.
Thank you.